What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review the Twisted Metal show. I watched the entire thing in one day, in one session, just went straight through 5 hours, right? Each episode is 30 minutes long. I thought we were only going to get one episode a week, and then I found out last night that no, it's every single episode all coming together. But you know what? You saw the title, and it's not clickbait in the slightest. I actually love this show. You know, as I was going through the show, it was in episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, and I was thinking, of this video and saying, well, what would be, that catchy kind of YouTube title, for the algorithm, something along the lines of the show was better than I thought. Well, you know what? As the show kept going, not only was it better than I thought, but I actually learned to really, really dig it. It has a lot going for it in terms of comedy, in terms of action, in terms of get this, actual genuine emotion. There's some things in this show that I just was not ready for. Acting, very good acting just across the board. We're going to talk about, each of these elements, but they actually nailed it. And and this may be so controversial. There were times where I think I was enjoying this show more than I was enjoying The Last of Us. Now, I do think The Last of Us is a much better just overall show, but you know what? Considering with The Last of Us show, I was always trying to think of the game, right? Always kind of, and maybe that's me. That's probably a me problem, but I was pitting it against the game and saying, all right, this is an iconic moment. Can Pedro Pascal do it, right? And there was that on my brain or in my mind a lot of the times. For Twisted Metal, it's like, look, I know you're not going to follow the games. Yet again, I actually think that would have been cool, but also spoilers for later on, when we get into the spoiler section. I know where it's going, and I guess they are going to follow the games, but it's a little complicated. But, I was going in thinking, just give me a good time. Give me a good show. Give me a show that, again, you don't really have to follow the games. You can kind of do whatever you want in this universe. And because of that, there's really no expectations. If you're going to change characters like Raven being normally a teenage girl, this time being Neve Campbell, who did fantastic, but that's not Raven. But that's fine because none of the show is really, going for that. So that's my mindset, I guess, going into the show, and it freaking blew my, it really did. It really surprised me. So I guess let's start kind of with the individual things. We can start with the actors and acting. I thought every character did really good. There are some very, very cheesy characters. I think of the Preacher. When I think of this, there's some classes in the I was going to call it a game, and I'll probably make that mistake at some point in this video, but there were some groups of people in this show that were cheesy, and they didn't mesh, I would say, with the rest of them, because actually Anthony Mackie, I thought, did a fantastic job, well acted. The actress for Quiet, who's actually off of this green screen over there, but she's a lead character, a main character, a brand new character in the franchise, and she's phenomenal. I think she had more range. It was probably the best actor of the entire thing. There's her name being Quiet, right? Early on in the show, a good percentage of the time early on, she's mute. She doesn't talk. She doesn't say anything. I think she plays that really well. Then she does talk, and she's got a range of, she's really sassy, but she's also very endearing. She's a really good character. I think she's a fantastic character. You got Sweet Tooth, who I think they actually did a pretty good job. I'm really not pleased at all with what they did with his origin. They actually show you the origin of Sweet Tooth. Completely unnecessary, not good. I feel they mentioned the dad. I think that's an Easter egg because they do mention the taxi. So there's a lot of smaller things in the show that connect to the games. By the way, very happy I played Twisted Metal 1 and 2, and I know about Twisted Metal Black. I know a little bit about Twisted Metal 2012 because there's a lot of characters that either characters, cars, or references, again, Sweet Tooth's dad, taxi driver, right? You wouldn't know that if you didn't play at least the first game. So, but besides that, I would say Sweet Tooth is a very, very good character. I mentioned Neve Campbell. She's not in it much. She's in the first episode and she's in the last episode, but she's extremely good. I want to talk about that because the ending is pretty gigantic. But then everybody else, the people they meet along the way, side characters, a Stu who ends up being, I keep pointing over here, Sweet Tooth's, BFF over there, Stu. I think he's a great, great character. He reminded me of the older guy in Cobra Kai who tries to act young, and I forget, Stingray, I think. He reminds me so much of Stingray from Cobra Kai. I don't think it's not the same actor, but it definitely reminds me of it. So acting across the board, very pleasantly surprised and pleased. I guess not all that surprised. A lot of these people are very, very talented, but they all gave it their all. And they actually gave way more than I thought they would. You can phone this kind of stuff in, and I really didn't think anybody did. And again, even when there was the cheesy or campiness, it was purposeful. Now, it didn't really, again, mesh fully with everybody else, but you could just think of it as factions, in this world. The world is literally insane, so you are going to meet people that kind of are like that. The plot, relatively simple. It's a delivery. They set up the universe, they set up the world rather well. They use flashbacks kind of when they need to. They actually did, almost a Last of Us-like approach where there's a couple episodes where it begins with the character, say, Sweet Tooth in one example, his character John Doe in another example, and they'll show them when they're young, 20 plus years ago. They'll do something there, and then they'll come back, and it'll almost be a hint that episode is centered around it. So they kind of show his origins, and that whole episode is kind of centered around that. Sweet Tooth, that episode is very Sweet Tooth-centric, so I like how they did that. And the general plot is very easy to follow, very simple. It's not the Twisted Metal tournament, but again, we'll kind of get there as this video goes on. The action, well, they don't get in cars all that much. So, look, on one side of things, it is kind of like The Last of Us with, where was the infected? They used infected very sparingly and not enough. And, when they talk about The Last of Us Season 2, they mention more infected. And it's like, well, there was a lot of infected in the first game that you didn't do in the show. Same thing kind of here with cars. It starts with a car thing. There are some car things, throughout. I won't give spoilers, but I will give kind of like a scene. In the final episode, there is a legitimate arena battle. A bunch of characters that have been throughout, all the episodes. They've all gone together kind of just through the plot devices, and they battle in a literal, it's not set up like the Twisted Metal competition, but they fire off rockets, and they're shooting each other, and there's crashes, and people die, and all that stuff. And it's extremely good. It's actually really, really fun when they do that. So you could say, well, you would like more of that. Well, yes, that is very true. I'm not going to say, Twisted Metal, considering it is literally supposed to be about these car competitions of destroying each other, I won't let them off the hook there. You can dock points, deduct points there. However, there is action. There's hand-to-hand stuff. There's a lot of murder. There is a lot of gore and stuff. I wouldn't recommend like a 10-year-old or less or something, watching this show. It can kind of get up there for sure, but it's highly entertaining, and that's one thing I want to really focus on before we get into too many spoilers. The show's just fun. Not all the jokes land. In fact, maybe 50% of the jokes land, but there are some good jokes. There's some really Sweet Tooth kind of just says stuff all the time. Again, some of it doesn't land, but some of it does, and it's pretty darn funny. Anthony Mackie, he's got a lot of jokes. Some of them land, some of them don't, but I will say this. Watching the trailer, watching the time that Sweet Tooth meets, Anthony Mackie's character, when I saw that, so many of the jokes there did not land. The good news is, well, number one, some of the jokes do land, so it's not like every single joke misses. And number two, it's not just jokes. And again, that's something I wanted to kind of get through, and I'm talking about the range of some of these people, is that kind of shocked me, because I was kind of going in expecting it to almost just be a pure comedy action film, or, I guess as a TV show, comedy action show. And the truth is it's not. The truth is there is some jokes, and every episode has some comedy in it, but there are some serious moments. There is some, again, emotion. There's a lot of crying. Characters do cry in this. There is a lot of character arcs, not just with main characters, but with side characters. So it really kind of has it all. So even when not every joke lands, the action's cool, or that's actually kind of an endearing scene. Oh, I actually feel bad for that person. Oh, I actually am kind of invested in what's going on with the story, or this person doing this thing. Again, that's kind of what shocked me, is there was way more levels to this show than I thought. There was some depth to it that I just didn't think it would have. So overall, I loved it. I kind of do want to get into spoilers just for a little bit here, just talk about maybe the last episode. So that's my thoughts, spoiler free. We're going to get into some spoilers. So the final episode of everybody fighting each other, again, loved it. I kind of had sensed the Raven thing that she would, Raven, just as a character in general, I did expect her to kind of go bad. You can immediately tell that, actually, in the first episode. What I thought is they were going to do something really weird and have her be Calypso. That was my literal prediction. I was going to tweet it, but that didn't really make much sense for me to do. But I thought she was going to be Calypso as the episodes were going on. Then they talked to Calypso, which I thought was really cool, and I really would have liked to see him. Instead, we just hear his voice, which was still kind of cool. And then, obviously, it's revealed in episode 10. Well, they do a couple things. They eliminate some characters. They leave Sweet Tooth, or, I want to call him Needles Kane because obviously there's plenty of evidence that that's his name. You see it. You see Kane oftentimes, too, like on his prison uniform and stuff. But like when he introduces himself as Sweet Tooth, it's like your name, the ice cream. And we talked about this on my third channel, Podcast Now Back to the Past. I don't know if everybody knows that. I think enough people do, though. Sweet Tooth is the name of the ice cream truck. It's not the name of him. His name is Needles Kane. So, him calling himself Sweet Tooth, him introducing himself as Sweet Tooth to other people is a little odd to me because that's literally not his name. But whatever. It's fine, I suppose. But obviously they leave his ending ambiguous. He's not dead. There's absolutely no way, but they leave it where I guess you could kill him off. You get rid of Agent Stone, which I thought he was a pretty cool character all the way around. They introduce, as time goes on, all of this stuff. You got Bloody Mary. You got cars like Roadkill, Mr. Slam. Mr. Slam was definitely, I would say, a discount version. You had Twister and many others. I mean, it was actually kind of cool, and I don't think it was necessarily like dangling the keys, and it's like, oh, look over here, we have a reference for you. It did feel kind of organic. Again, there were some like Mr. Slam or even maybe Bloody Mary. There were some characters where it's like, oh, that's kind of just thrown in there for fan service, but like their final car is Roadkill. And I think they did Sweet Tooth, the actual ice cream truck. I think they did that phenomenal. And the weaponry of the rockets kind of launching out, actually you can see over there, like of the eyes. I think they did really good in that kind of Easter egg-like way. But then obviously how it ends. I do want to talk about that ending just really quickly. So it ends very much like how the Mortal Kombat movie ended, which I actually find that to be extremely interesting. I wonder if they knew that or like talked to anybody, because the Mortal Kombat movie, for those that don't know, right, they introduce new characters. They actually, like, that is the main character is a new character, but they have, the supporting cast of fan favorites, and it ends with the idea that there will be a Mortal Kombat tournament, and that'll be the second movie, right? Now, we're getting the second movie, so we will get that tournament. Well, in this, they did the exact same thing. The whole thing, right? They wanted John Doe into the settlement. Raven wanted to convince him to be there and then have him be her driver in a Twist Metal competition. And then she, tells him that all at the end, that you're going to be the driver. This is a competition. You fight, the best drivers around the world, and you compete for the ultimate prize with Calypso, who will give you, your one wish. And that's literally what she says. And that's extremely cool because they're setting up literally the Twisted Metal tournament. So they are doing the exact same thing Mortal Kombat did. This relied on new characters. This relied on the fan favorites being more secondary things, but then it ends with the idea that, okay, they'll probably not follow any specific game because it's actually very hard to do that in the first place, but what Twisted Metal is, the competition, we're going to do that in season 2. Now, number one, I want to say, I'm not too upset because I actually thought the show was really, again, engaging and fun, way more than I thought. So the fact that they didn't do an actual Twist Metal competition and they teased that as the next season doesn't upset me too much because I liked the show. If I didn't like the show and they did it, then it'd be like, okay, well, that's just stupid. You should have done it instead. But it also makes it now where they need to do a season 2. Because again, when everybody was fighting in that 10th episode, it was awesome. It wasn't that long. I mean, it probably lasted 5 to 8 minutes long, right? But it was really, really cool. So I hope you can get, probably not a full season of it, but I hope you can get a season the next season, where they do fight. And it is interesting how all that stuff is going to work out. So, will Calypso be the same kind of Calypso in the game? Will John Doe win and then Raven get the wish? And will he kind of double cross her? Is Raven kind of on the same level with Calypso? There's still some mystery I think they can do, but it kind of makes me not just want, but almost need a season 2 of the show. But I really liked, I would say, the ending and lots of Easter eggs, again, peppered throughout the entire thing, but specifically the final episode. And then going forward, I think they can do pretty good in the next season. So again, I honestly really like this show. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.